Hello and welcome to week 12. I cannot believe we are getting close to the middle of November. We're moving through this material at a rapid pace. We've still got a couple more weeks of ground to cover. So don't lose steam, keep up the hard work, and be sure to keep submitting your assignments. This is week 12, but I did open up all of the rest of the assignments except for the final exam earlier this week. I finished writing and posting 2 of the assignments this morning. I did that because I know the end of the semester can be really crazy. So I'm hoping that if you have a little bit of free time the next couple of weeks, you can start tackling some of the assignments to help you get ahead. Keep in mind, we still also have a couple of essays that you have to write as well as the final exam. The essays have been available since the beginning of the semester. So even though I opened up all of the work, it is really important to keep in mind what is due this actual week. So for this week, week 12, you have your initial discussion boards due by tonight, and then replies, the quizzes, and the weekly discussion questions due by Sunday. You guys have been awesome so far with submitting your work, so be sure to keep that up. I've also decided to allow late work to be accepted at 50% potential grade. So if you've missed past homeworks, if you've missed some of the smaller assignments, the discussion boards, feel free to go back and go ahead and do that for 50% credit. If you also received an incredibly low score on something that I've already graded, you can also go back and make up some of those points with 50% being the highest grade you can receive. If you have any questions about that, please reach out and let me know. This week, we are moving to the period of the Cold War. These are the decades that are going to follow World War II. This is when we're going to start to kind of be hysterical inwardly, having some pretty intense fears that are going to shape politics, are going to shape race relations, society, and culture. We're going to start to see that external politics and diplomacy are going to go hand in hand with what is happening internally. Because of this, for instance, when men like JFK come into office, he's going to be really cognizant of the fact that the entire world that's being dominated by this Cold War, is paying attention to what is happening internally. And he's aware that the United States is trying to posit itself as this beacon of democracy, and yet we're having all of these social and racial issues internally. And so we're going to have politicians that are going to grapple with this, and they're going to start to try to do things to make it so that the world at least thinks of the United States as this hope, right? This option for democracy. Your primary source for this week is from Joseph McCarthy, who's going to be a leader in the war against communism. He is really going to set off this period of hysteria almost as quickly as he gets power. He loses it, which you guys will read about in the work for this week. It's a really interesting piece. So think about how that works kind of with this broader period, right? How is he able to get this power? How is he able to take this control? Last week we did have a lot of material. You thought about kind of World War II. I posted a number of lectures kind of discussing this idea. This is a really important moment as we're starting to understand changes in the United States. There was an error with one of the questions. I do apologize. One of the discussion questions for last week was what happened when Germany invaded Russia in 1939. That was a typo. It should have been what happened when Russia invaded Poland in 1939. That did start World War II. That is when Great Britain is going to formally declare war, kind of setting off the events that will lead to this global war. Many of you rightfully pointed out that Germany does not invade Poland for 2 more years when they go against the non-aggression pact. So Germany is going to invade Poland, but not in 1939. When you look at the rest of the questions, Hitler uses this process or this policy of blitzkrieg, also known as lightning war, to very quickly move throughout Europe. He is going to target attacks, specifically kind of demolishing certain areas to very quickly move through many of these countries. This is used when he is going to move throughout Poland, and then very, very successfully when he goes to France. And so he's going to start to use this to really push back control in Europe and take over large amounts of territory. When you think about comparing the fighting to Europe in the Pacific, many of you rightfully described kind of a difference in terrain. In the Pacific, it's going to be island hopping, right? There's a lot more naval battles. Europe is going to be land focused. It's different type of population concentrations. All of those things are really important. But the textbooks also described how racism and prejudice is going to shape fighting in each area. So for instance, when the Americans are fighting in the Pacific, a lot of their actions, a lot of their approaches to the soldiers, the Japanese soldiers, is shaped by many of the prejudices and racism that they have towards this group. It's going to say in OpenStax, it's really fueled by fear of Japanese imperialist aggression, as well as anger over the attack on Pearl Harbor, that's going to shape the way that the military is going to enact battles in the Pacific theater. So we start to see, if you look at specific instances, our soldiers, in Japan, in the Pacific theater, are going to be much more aggressive. And this is going to shape a lot of what's going on there. So for instance, a lot of the soldiers are going to do things like take war trophies for many of the soldiers, or excuse me, many of the individuals that they kill in Japan, right? The sending back of actual bones is an incredibly popular tradition that's going to happen in the Pacific. When you think about why the United States joined World War II, most of you are correct in stating that it was the attack on Pearl Harbor that's going to push the United States from this resting monster, this slumbering beast, into an active participant in the war. And again, this is really going to contribute some of those beliefs and actions toward Japan when we actually fight in the Pacific theater. When you think about what is happening between Japan and China, these are two very different countries. China is getting very, very close to communism. Japan is going to be a capitalist nation. A lot of Japan's issues are going to come down to resources, and that's part of the issue that is going to lead to Pearl Harbor as well. Japan and China have a very difficult relationship. There's a lot of abuse happening. Japan is going to invade China and commit some atrocities, many of which you guys discussed. And this is really laying the foundation for some of the issues that will come up later in World War II. Overall, you guys did awesome on the questions for last week, so I'm pretty excited to read what you have to think about the material this week. If you guys need anything, if you have questions, if you want to discuss any of the material, or if you don't understand something, just a reminder, you can always reach out to me. We can set up a call, converse by email. I am here to help. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.